Everyone, welcome to episode 1 of Common Sensi. I decided to put together a short video series, having some cool conversations with great people, primarily because I've been really fortunate enough over the last 10 years of doing software for education to meet a lot of really cool, really interesting people that I feel like not everybody gets a chance to know in the context that I have. And so I thought I'd put together this short video series, bringing on a guest each time, where we do 3 questions apiece. I ask the guests 3 interesting questions about themselves, let you get a chance to get to know them as I have, and similarly, let them ask me 3 questions, unscripted, no real topics, and just kind of see how it goes. So we're going to try it out and see if this is something that folks like. And I'm very honored to bring on our very first guest, Jason Gross. Jason's been in the industry a lot longer than I have and has done a lot of really interesting things. Not saying that you're old, Jace. But I'll let Jason give himself a brief introduction and we'll get into the questions.
Hey, thanks, Jay. You didn't tell me this was going to be the pilot episode, buddy. Again, thank you for thinking of me, and I think this is just such a fantastic idea because you're kind of breaking down the barriers of folks in the exhibit hall, just allowing them to be known in a different capacity than just a vendor in the in the exhibit hall. So kudos to you for kind of coming up with this idea. It's awesome. And for those of you that don't know me, I kind of echo what Jay said, that this is just a great opportunity just to allow people to share stories and just allow to be seen in a different capacity. So as Jay kind of alluded to, I've been on both sides of the fence for a long time now, you can say it. And I worked in student housing. I have been in the ed tech marketplace for a long time too. And it's just it's a pleasure to be on with you today. I can't wait to see where this goes. And I do have some good questions for you, bud.
Okay, well, listen, that was the goal of this whole thing. I don't know if you have a preference, Jace. If you want to ask first, or if you want to trade one off, or do all 3 and switch, let's wing it.
Let's volley it back and forth. And I think as the guest, I should get the first question.
That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah.
So in the industry, I think you're commonly looked at as the weightlifting guy, right? Or the guy that lifts heavy things. But not a lot of people know you as an engineer by trade. So, first question, this is a 2-part question, by the way. Number 1, where'd you go to school? And what was your area of concentration as it relates to engineering?
Yeah. I do still lift weights occasionally, though now with kids, not as often as I wish. Now I play defense and try not to get fat. But yeah, I went to the University of Scranton. So I'm born and raised in Northeast Pennsylvania, just outside of Scranton. That a lot of folks know really for the office. And so I went to University of Scranton, graduated there with an undergrad in electrical engineering. I also went back for my MBA from Scranton as well. And before starting this company, spent a little bit over a decade in the Department of Defense. Worked for companies like Lockheed Martin, working on some really interesting technology, Hellfire missiles, targeting systems for Apache helicopters. So I think I'm a little more than a meathead, but what you see is what you get.
All right. So the follow-up question to that is, all right, so how did you get into the bodybuilding thing? What was that? What was that path?
Yeah, so that's a little bit longer of a story. So, when I was a kid, when I was in high school, I was a pretty skinny kid. It was hard for me to gain weight. I wish I had that metabolism now. But back then, I wanted to be a little bit bigger. And, I was always really into superheroes. I was into Batman and Incredible Hulk, and that was something that would just always jive with me. And, if you know anything about superheroes, those guys are big, right? They're big, they're strong, they're physically imposing. And that was something I wanted to be. And so I always thought, well, I'm a short guy. I can't make myself any taller. Maybe I can make myself a little wider with some effort. And was very fortunate enough that I had a really, really close mentor my senior year in high school. He was actually the principal of my high school. owned a local powerlifting gym, and he kind of took me under his wing, taught me how to work out the right way, pushed me mentally, physically, and I actually got into powerlifting before I got into bodybuilding, strength competitions. There was a point in time where I qualified for the world championships in bench press. I don't lift that quite that heavy anymore, but that kind of allowed me to put on the required mass to get into competitive bodybuilding that I did for a number of years before I quote unquote retired from that and had kids and now play defense and just try not to get fat at this point.
There you go. Awesome.
Great question. Great question. All right, my turn. So a lot of folks know that you spent time with a lot of different software vendors after coming from the higher ed side. At this point, you're maybe retired, maybe a free agent. You know, from what I understand, you moved up to West Virginia, up in an area where you got some family. So what's retired life like now?
Oh, okay. So first of all, not retired. I'm kind of like Ross and Rachel. I'm like Ross and Rachel and Friends. I'm on a break, right? So, so no, it just it seemed like a really good time to just get back closer to family, friends in the area. I'm originally from West Virginia, kind of like you. You know, you got to move away to come home. Is that, you know, it's kind of what they say. So, you know, Dawn and I have been, you know, lived in multiple states over the past, you know, 15 years, longer than that, actually, 20 years. And that's just kind of the life of a student affairs professional. You go where they hire you, and then you move on, you move up, you move on, you move up. And, you know, I worked at Siena Heights University up in Adrian, Michigan. I worked at Defiance College in Defiance, Ohio. Had a chance to get into Bowling Green State University, and would still be there to this day. But as most of the higher ed professionals on this, you know, that will see this know that, you know, sometimes organizations go through kind of a shift in culture, and we had that happen there, and a lot of people left. And as you kind of alluded to, that kind of led me into the ed tech space. So I worked for RMS, as they were called at the time. They weren't Mercury, they were RMS. And then from RMS to Adirondack, and then from Adirondack through the acquisition to StarRes. And just everything that kind of happened along the way with, you know, the acquisition. And you know, I think I kind of alluded to this in a LinkedIn post I made, you know, recently about I've been working since I was a sophomore in high school. And so all those things coming together, wanting to get back home to friends and family, and not to mention selling a house, the process of moving and all of that good stuff. It just seemed like a good time to take a break. So it's a break. That's all. I promise.
Not retired, for the record, not retired, just a little bit of a break.
Exactly.
I understand those are all good reasons to you know, warrant a little bit of time off. Hopefully you'll get a little golf in, or enjoy at least the rest of the summer.
Yeah, it's been nice. And actually, you know, I got nieces and nephews here that, you know, spend, you know, some of the time chasing around. So it's been fun being closer, you know, back to friends and family. You
That's
know,
awesome.
it's, you know, I'm not like you playing defense all the time. But it's I play you know, I play zone when I want to, you
There you
know.
go. Yeah. Awesome.
So all right, so my turn again.
Okay.
So I know MCR was very much a passion project for you because of your roommate experience. So without throwing anyone under the bus, you know, or going too, you know, digging, you know, too deep for dirty laundry, what were the circumstances that kind of that, you know, created this epiphany? Like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Yeah, I mean, MCR definitely has been a passion project for me, and really, you know, those that have kind of known me from the start know that it came from just everyone that I knew or somebody that they knew had a bad roommate experience, right? And so, you know, back in those days, I think it was before most schools had housing softwares altogether. Paper-driven processes, you know, a paper roommate survey with a couple questions that you actually mailed back in, snail
Yeah.
mail, and
Yep.
somebody shifted papers around, and sometimes you got lucky and sometimes you didn't. You know, I wouldn't say that I had the roommate from hell, so to speak, but maybe the nicest way I could say it is, if I had had my choice, I probably would not have picked this particular person. Polar opposites, and sometimes that works, and My case,
Yeah.
it just didn't. Um, but a lot of it came from just hearing horror stories from everybody else as well. People that I kept in touch with from high school that were at different institutions, people that were at
Yep.
the same institution. It was just a widespread issue that students wanted some say in. And so, really that's where the first version of MCR came along is how do we fix this problem? How do we make it something that a student can do themselves rather than somebody playing matchmaker with a bunch of sheets of paper?
Right. Oh, and you know what? I've been on that side of the table too, trying to take those stacks of paper back in the day. And honestly, you would have just as much luck going to the top of the stairs, taking those piles of paper, throwing them to the bottom, and just pairing them up as is.
Nobody's good at
So,
it.
yo, dude, it's a crapshoot every time. You never know what you're gonna
Right.
get. Yeah,
Right.
and even if
That's why dating sites exist, right? I mean, nobody, you've got to do it yourself. You
yeah,
got to do it yourself.
yeah, absolutely, dude, absolutely. Okay, cool. I was kind of curious where that all came from.
Yeah, I mean, nobody tried to murder me. They tried to smother me in my sleep. It wasn't like that. It just seemed like it was an emerging trend that you heard much more often than I think you should hear. That somebody just doesn't like their roommate. So it really kind of came from not only just living in it, but hearing others talk about it as well. I wish I
Yeah,
had, wish I had
it
some.
should be a no it should be a no-brainer, right?
Yeah, it should be. It should be. All right. So I want to dig a little bit more kind of personal, Jace. So, I've
Okay.
gotten a chance to get to know you over the last 10 years, and we've seen each other in so many different cities around the country, different trade shows, and got a chance to, share meals together. And, you were absent from the trade show circuit for, I think, a little bit over a year, maybe close to 2 years. And I think a lot of people don't know some of the health history. And so I think a
Right.
lot of that, in my opinion, has shaped who you are and how you perceive things and your outlook. If you don't mind sharing, I'd love to dig a little bit deeper in there. And I think
Yeah.
folks will probably appreciate hearing a little bit about that.
Yeah. It actually goes back. I was doing the numbers the other day, and I think I've probably spent about 20 months overall under the direct care of a physician, dealing with an issue. It all started back in '91. I was about 3 weeks removed from high school graduation, and you're feeling good on top of the world, and
Mhm.
except I wasn't feeling good. And chest X-ray later revealed a mass right behind my sternum, and that was Hodgkin's disease. Form of cancer. So I was fortunate enough to have a great physician that got me transferred up to UPMC in Pittsburgh. And I spent about 8 months going through chemotherapy and radiation therapy. And I mean, the end result of that, as you kind of mentioned, definitely shaped who I was because when I went to college, I had a better head on my shoulder, as a result of all that. Um, so, yeah, that kind of, you know, opened my eyes a little bit and gave me a lot more perspective on life. Then about halfway into my college experience, and I was in college for 8 years, and let me qualify that statement. That is, 2 undergraduate degrees, teaching certification, and an MBA all consecutively. So, but halfway into, or not even halfway, first semester of my graduate years, bad appendix, and it didn't blow on me, but it abscessed, which means is a nice way to say it got infected. So I sat in a hospital room for about a month, just having them go through antibiotic and surgeries, and it was just, it was chaos, goat rodeo. And again, it was just kind of like, the universe's way of reminding me, like, okay, no matter what the life tosses at you, it's not that big a deal, right? And then, just very recently, pre-COVID, because I miss seeing you guys on the road. It was there's a kind of a funny story to go along with this too. Um, so it was summer of 19, and I just came back from, I think it was at a demo. I don't know if it was in Pittsburgh visiting La Roche or if I was in New Orleans for another demo. But I got back from that trip and I just wasn't feeling well at all. So went and saw my general practitioner. He got me recommended for an upper GI, and it revealed what they thought were ulcers, and they were indeed ulcers, but it was also cancerous. A really strange, not strange, but uncommon for my type, called Burkitt's lymphoma. And, thankfully, we were living in Raleigh, and got me transferred over to Chapel Hill, which is just an absolute fantastic, cancer center. And again, the trade off was, you can't travel anymore, obviously under chemotherapy, but I just kind of threw myself into my work at that time. And one of the funny stories is, we actually got Bill Gunger and we got a reseller agreement done with Elucian during that time. And we were actually on a conference call with some folks in the Elucian office down in Reston, and chemo bag was uh, nearing empty, and it started to beep. Somebody on the Zoom was like, "Hey, are you guys hearing a beep?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's the chemo bag." And of course the Elucian folks, who are everybody on the call was kind of a close, colleague, friend. And after that, they started, blowing up Bill's text, saying, "Hey, well, you having this guy work while he's going through chemo?" But again, it was just the universe's way of reminding me, and this is how I kind of perceive it, is that, you're a speck in the universe. Don't
Mm.
forget that. And no matter what kind of adversity life is thrown at you, at the end of the day, it it really doesn't matter, as it kind of pertains to your life. So that's just kind of shaped my kind of approach on everything. It drives my family crazy at times because, like, oh, it's no big deal. We'll take care of it. What do you mean it's not a big deal? It is a big deal. I'm like, in the grand scheme, it's not a big deal. I know it's a big deal to you. Let's figure it out. But for me, it's just, yeah, that's just kind of my approach to everything now. Doesn't mean I'm not passionate about what I do, but it gives you perspective.
100%. Yeah, yeah. Thanks for sharing. I think a lot of people that knew you were missing from the road for a while maybe didn't quite know the cause behind it, but I'm super happy that you're cancer-free, healthy, and enjoying your break.
No, and the strange thing about it too is I was ready to go back out on the road, and then COVID came along, and
That's
then
right.
everything,
Yeah,
I got a clean bill of health, and then the world stopped, right? So thankfully we're well past that.
that's fantastic.
All right.
Got one more
So,
for me?
oh, go ahead.
No, you got another one for me?
I do. And obviously, I think you've been busy as the world has kind of seen over the past, with the bomb you dropped in Portland. Um, Something you said that I think a lot of people kind of appreciated is that, you don't think you have a lane. Stay in your lane, right? And I don't think that kind of resonates with you, staying in your lane. So, one, what kind of led you down this path with MCR housing?
Yep.
And two, what else is on the horizon? If you don't want to tip your hat, I understand, but what are you thinking?
Yeah. So, I mean, I've always operated under the mindset that when you stop providing value, you kind of die on the vine, right? And when I started my college roomie, I knew it was very niche, right? It's very much a luxury. Everybody would love to have roommate matching. Not everybody needs roommate matching, but it was a foot in the door to the industry. But I never wanted to be a one-trick pony. I didn't want to just be the roommate matching guy. I wanted to be able to add more value, and maybe something I'll share in another video is kind of my Six Sigma, my process improvement background. Well, if you know anything about process improvement and Lean or Six Sigma principles, they're always about driving value, maximizing value for the customer, because ultimately they're the ones that matter the most. And so, over time, I started to think, well, how can we leverage the foundation that we built and continue adding value for the industry? And that's where Guardian was the next step, right? When we brought the Guardian product to life, we wanted to bring a new, fresh, innovative look at case management for the education industry. and that has caught on fire and is really, really doing wonders for the clients. And the MCR housing idea really kind of came about from circumstance, identifying an opportunity, and I think being in the right place at the right time. I attribute a lot of my, and whether you know this or not, I attribute a lot of my early success with my college roomie with the partnerships that we formed with Adirondack, with RMS, and the friendships that we made, and the integrations that we were able to put together, not because it made anybody more money, but because the client benefited. In fact, there was never a dollar exchange between the companies, but working together brought more value to the client. And I started to see how that was beneficial over time. And so, quite frankly, I had thought about doing housing for a long time. And the reason I never did was I wasn't going to compete with my friends, right? I was not going to go and compete with the Adirondacks, with the RMSs of the world, because they were people that I always felt that we were all in it together to provide value to the client. But when all my friends got bought, the game changed a little bit. And so then I saw an opportunity that the industry, quite frankly, in my opinion, needed another option. I don't think any industry is good to have one, maybe one and a half or two options. I believe in competition. I believe it's good for the industry. And, without oversharing, a lot of clients asked quite point blank for me to build a housing tool when a lot of this information kind of shook down the pipeline. And so, through those conversations, a lot of that is really where I got the confidence to say, delving into this crowded market, we'll see where it goes, but I think it's a gamble worth taking. One, for added value, but two, because I think the industry wants it. And so, we're really excited about MCR housing. The response has been overwhelmingly positive. Next couple of years are going to be really, really exciting and interesting. And we're always thinking about the next lane to get into. My vision for Campus Kaizen is to be as much of a one-stop shop for campus technology as we can. And we know we're not going to do it overnight. But continuous improvement has taught me, shoot for perfection. You won't get there, but if you're getting a little bit closer every time, then you're going in the right direction. And so, we're always thinking about what campuses need next. Maybe it's something in asset management, maybe it's parking, always looking for adjacent ways to serve the same industry, with our experience and technology. So, maybe we'll have something else come down the pipeline. Right now, we're focused on keeping clients happy, making sure we're delivering the best customer service in the industry, and getting new clients launched on MCR housing.
You said a lot there. I think what I kind of took away from that too is you're not trying to be all things to all people either, because if you try to do that, if you try to please everybody, you end up lying to somebody. So, no, I think you're definitely, and I think as soon as you made that announcement, I was like, yeah, good for you. But I agree with you that this industry needs options. And I'm very happy that, that you're looking at this, and as well as other adjacent, areas to kind of serve the industry as well.
It's an exciting time. We'll see where we can take it. But, like you said, we're not going to be the best fit for everybody. That's fine. But we're going to be a great fit for a lot of folks. And that's our goal. We're not trying to be in every single campus. We want to be in the campuses that we're the right fit for, that they're the right fit for us, that we're on the same page towards, continuous improvement.
Yeah. Something I always said when I was, still with Adirondack, it's there are clients for every vendor and vendors for every client. And like you alluded to, you're never going to hit that 360 match, but, just through the process of discovery, figuring out, whether or not this is a good fit, and just being honest too with the client, like, hey, we think we're a good fit or we're not a good fit. And I think people appreciate that, especially in this field, because there's so many quick buck artists out there.
Yeah, I mean, I'd rather tell somebody no, we can't do it, and not get the deal, than tell somebody we can and then they're disappointed, right? The way I've always run my company is I put more, and I'd like to think that the clients would attest to this, but my focus is always in keeping the current clients happy, much more so than trying to get the next one. I think where a lot of companies trip over themselves is they're always trying to get the next one, and they forget about the ones that have already put their trust and their dollars to work in that partnership. My goal is keeping those folks happy and continuing to deliver what they want. The other ones will come over time. And that seems to have worked pretty good for us so far. And, I don't plan to change that philosophy.
No, that's awesome. Good for you, man.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right, I got one more before we break for this session. So a lot of people are probably wondering, I know I'm wondering, you've made it very clear you're not retired. You're on a break. If you can share what's next.
It's so funny, Jay, that it took me leaving a position to find out that it, I think you know this, that Bill Gunger and I are pretty close friends.
Yeah.
And he left like a year and a half, or year and a half before I did. And then I left, and then all of a sudden people started coming out of the woodwork wanting to know what we're doing. And it's funny, I've had a lot of people reach out to me about, potential, working opportunities and whatnot. And I'm just trying to take a very slow, measured approach to what's next. And I mean, really, what's next for me is, finishing up relocation, finishing up, getting the house closed and everything like that, enjoying some time here with family before everybody, goes back to college, goes back to school, starts, getting ramped up again in their day-to-day grind. So I'm just enjoying the downtime. But, you know, I have a feeling that sometime, may not be this month, may not be next month, but I'll have to scratch that itch at some point. Like, it's time to start, reconnecting with people, and it's going to be something in the ed tech space, just because this is where I've spent the majority of my time. I've built up a lot of goodwill, I think, over the past, 20 years. And I'd like to think people can trust me when I'm, telling them that this is, something that you should take a look at. Not buy it, but take a look at it and become more educated about it. And that was always my approach too. Whenever I sold, when I was, with Adirondack, I would tell people, go look at StarRes, go look at RMS, go look at the other providers out there, and become a well-educated buyer. Because at the end of the day, you only get to spend that same dollar one time. So do it right. But yeah, so what's next is we'll wait and see. So who knows?
Yeah, I mean, what I think is indicative of the outreach is, how much people have appreciated you and the reputation that you've built, over your career. So I have no doubts that when you're ready to rock and roll and get back out there, that somebody will get pretty lucky in bringing you on board.
It's funny, man. I think a lot of people, you said it earlier, people have a tendency to kind of overpromise and underdeliver, and you want to be the opposite of that. In my 10 years with Adirondack, I think I only made one mistake. And it was on a conference call. I heard Active Directory, but what they said was Active Directory Federated Services, which is night and day different.
Yes.
But the end result was that we were able to fulfill the client's needs, and we were able to get registered as part of InCommon. So it worked out in moving us forward, but I call that a pretty good track record over the years. Yeah. So I'll take it.
Hey, you built the plane while you were flying a little bit.
Yeah, a little bit, yeah. I had to keep the folks in in IT busy.
100%. 100%. Awesome. This has been awesome, man. This has been fantastic. Thanks for joining me for this episode. Hopefully people, like this type of content, and get to know the people behind the screen. As I bring other vendors on, maybe folks understand that we don't bite in the expo hall. It's totally fine to come and talk to us, even though you may not be in a purchasing position. But it's always great catching up with you. Hope I get to see you again on the road at some point. And thanks so much for joining.
No, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I wish you nothing but the best.
Thank you, Jace. We'll talk soon, man.
All right, buddy. Take care.
Thanks.